We have a whole host of new Nintendo Switch 2 information to go over today, confirming some brand new features, not speculation leak territory. Like some of this stuff is coming straight up from Nintendo's own FCC filings for the console, and revealing some things like what Wi-Fi antenna it's going to use. It's also deconfirming some features that many were hoping for, such as dock streaming, which we really, have to unpack and talk about. And then a massive manufacturer for a SD card just confirmed like way faster read write speeds and all of that stuff when it comes to backing up our games. So big implications that we will no doubt learn about officially from Nintendo. But of course, Switch 2 being a hot button issue right now, people dive into official filings, find postings from overseas, and actually can come to some of the conclusions ahead of time before waiting on Nintendo to confirm some of this stuff for us. So we're going to get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off by talking through some of the new FCC filings for Switch 2 and exactly what it's confirmed that's notable, because there's a lot of stuff that is just the legal terminology. If you're unaware, anytime you're going to be selling some kind of device that has wireless transmission of any sort, you pretty much have to register all of the ins and outs of that through the FCC for review, and those are public filings. So all of this stuff is not rumor, leak, speculation talk, but rather things that you can go independently verify yourself if you would like to. But there are some users who are very well versed on the different codes and things that you see pop up, because if I look at this stuff in plain text, it looks like a foreign language to me, but there are people who know exactly what they are talking about here, and I will have some of these posts linked in the description down below, as many of these explanations are coming from user LIC over on FamiBoard, so full credit goes out to them for kind of deciphering this stuff. But the first and most notable feature that we're going to talk about from the FCC filing is Wi-Fi 6 and the support of that in the Nintendo Switch 2 console. And if you're unfamiliar with the different Wi-Fi generations that are out there, you just kind of need to know that the current day standards are Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and 7. And while we're not getting 6E or 7 in the Switch 2, we are getting confirmed support for Wi-Fi 6, which is a massive upgrade in terms of the total amount of data that can be pushed wirelessly via your internet connection when the console's connected. You might be somebody similar to me. I have fiber internet, great download and upload speeds, but if you're trying to actually pull something from the eShop and download it on your Switch, even just a few gigabytes, it might take upwards of 10, 20, 30 minutes in some cases to get like a 10 gig download on your Switch 2. Whereas if you were to do that on your PC, whether it be wirelessly connected or not, or a laptop, anything like that, you might notice that it goes, in a fraction of the time, potentially a minute or less for the same file that's going to take you close to 30 minutes to download on your Nintendo Switch console. And with the confirmation of Wi-Fi 6 technology, that's big not only for game downloads and them taking less time, but everybody obviously loves to blame Nintendo doing their peer-to-peer servers for the most part whenever you're playing online play on Nintendo Switch, but no doubt the Wi-Fi 5 technology and just the cheaper lower end card that they used within the Nintendo Switch was probably a culprit of why you had so much lag and issues with other players online. We are hoping that with things like the Nintendo Switch Online Play network test that they did, and it seems like there's a lot of these newer traces of code you can look at in more modern games from the Nintendo Switch where they're using different server technology. They haven't really built up to dedicated servers with their online play on all their games or anything like that, but it has gotten better over the course of the Switch's generation. But one potential bottleneck that's been there the whole time is that Wi-Fi 5 antenna, and specifically a lower end quality Wi-Fi card that's put in there. So while this is by no means guaranteeing like flawless online play or a much better experience at the end of the day, I do think with the bandwidth just being opened up to the capabilities of Wi-Fi 6, and assuming it's just going to have access to way more download speed at any given time, upload as well, with less latency, providing it's a quality Wi-Fi card, like that is obviously at the end of the day going to be a good news situation for literally everybody that picks up this console. 6E and 7 Wi-Fi technologies obviously are the latest and greatest, and they do have some higher frequencies like the 6 gigahertz band I know that 6E uses. You can argue that maybe that interferes less with other devices you would have on your Wi-Fi network, which is maybe ideal, but not a game changer. We're going really from the step of Wi-Fi 5 to 6 this time around. Just having that jump alone should be a massive noticeable difference from what you have with the Switch 1. And again, online play and really game downloads, as we expect them to get much larger on the current Nintendo Switch, which that actually plays into part of the other feature that is confirmed that we will get to in a moment. But yeah, with the size of games going up this generation, no doubt, it is good news to see this Wi-Fi 6 technology supported. Now, there are also a couple side things that have been confirmed that I'll mention real briefly. There's an extra wireless antenna, presumably for Bluetooth, in this console that was not in the original Switch. There is also for sure NFC support for things like Amiibo that will no doubt be compatible with your Joy-Con Pro controller and all that stuff. I'm assuming it will work essentially exactly how it does with the current Nintendo Switch family of systems. And then I want to point out this post from LIC, which reads specifically, another reason to make note of this report is that it conclusively kills the possibility of dock streaming. Even if one was holding out hope that the dock's own FCC filing just hasn't been published yet, the simultaneous use of wireless in the console and dock would be mentioned in here somewhere. And so for anybody that was holding out hope that that mystery C button may have stood for cast or connect, and it's actually going to let you do something like look at your gameplay on your tablet that you're holding for the Nintendo Switch 2 and then have, that Wii U type of experience. And maybe it was even only going to be used for stuff like DS and 3DS emulation via Nintendo Switch Online. It seems like, according to these filings, that exact type of technology is just not outlined, and it would be here. So, while we've seen Nintendo mess around with patents and stuff for that tech in the past, and it's not saying it's not possible for them to do it in some other way, but in terms of just having that core functionality built into the Switch 2, that's not what we should expect. The dock is not going to be able to receive a wireless signal from the console to allow you to have that dual gameplay type of experience. There are some other, HDMI mirroring options they would have, kind of like the PS Portal, but I personally am not expecting that dual screen mirrored gameplay or anything like that. I think if you're holding out any level of hope for it at this point, maybe Nintendo at some point in the Switch 2's life cycle sells like an optional accessory add-on where you can buy a top display, something that closes down and folds on top of the 8-inch Switch 2 display, and it plugs into that top USB-C port. Like, there are possibilities for things like that, but also not something that I'm really expecting to see in this console generation. I would love it if, when they do reveal DS and 3DS content coming to Nintendo Switch Online, something like that would be sold as an optional accessory so you could have a great handheld experience for DS and 3DS emulation. Like, obviously that would be a huge win if you had a top screen and you also had the bottom one that was going to be a touchscreen, but I really don't think Nintendo's going through all of that to support the DS library. I actually think something like the mouse functionality that we're going to see built into the Joy-Cons would potentially be the solve for whenever you're in docked play and you need to do touchscreen controls on the DS gameplay. Like, I think they're just going to emulate both screens on the one display that you're playing on, and you can touch that other display potentially with the Joy-Con mouse control. And they may actually release some kind of special edition controller that does have a touch screen on it for the NSO release of those consoles once that happens. But Nintendo's going to cross that bridge once they come to it. I think they're going to solve for that issue some other way, but it doesn't seem like the cast feature is indeed something that will be baked into this console. Now, the last piece of new, confirmed, exciting Switch 2 features that we have to go through in this video has to do with micro SD card express technology, which is now essentially confirmed for this console, because while it was heavily rumored before, we didn't have any straight up confirmation that it would be supported, other than we saw that GameStop listing that essentially got shared around from GameStop's backend. It literally said Switch 2 micro SD express and had multiple different SKUs, but now we have Lexar actually just making an official post marketing their own 1 terabyte micro SD express card, which, if you are unfamiliar, it's a way faster storage medium than our current SD cards that we are using in our Switches today. So some highlights from their post: Switch 2 is really here this time. Want fast loading without stuttering? Want to download a AAA game in less than 10 minutes? Want to store 100 games? The Lexar Play Pro SD Express is here. 900 megabytes ultra fast read speed. Enter the game world in seconds and smoothness. 600 megabytes write speed. Download a AAA game in less than 10 minutes. Up to 1 terabyte mass storage. 100 games easy to install. So obviously some of the games slated to come to Nintendo Switch 2, such as the 10-year contract that Microsoft signed to support Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years, like we're going to get Black Ops 6, Warzone, many other versions of Call of Duty that are upwards of, 100 to 200 gigabytes in total size on the other consoles. Nintendo's very good at compressing the games that come to their platforms in the Switch generation, but I do think that some of these larger third-party devs aren't going to compress them down to, anything small. It's going to still be very large file sizes at the end of the day, and we're going to have a very fast solution for storage. Now, there's another story that was going around before, maybe from a confirmed developer, didn't look into exactly how reliable this individual was, but they were basically claiming as a dev for Nintendo Switch 2 and working with dev kits, that they were actually under the impression that we may have to install games off the game cartridges, like where today you pop in a game cart, it reads it straight from that game cart. You don't have to go through an install process, whereas if you play on an Xbox Series X or a PS5 and you insert a disc into that console, it actually installs all of those files onto the internal SSD of the console. Then you are playing directly off the SSD. We don't know exactly how Nintendo Switch 2 will handle this, but let's just assume that we do have some kind of install process and those files do have to be moved onto the internal system storage. SD Express, while not as fast as the internal storage, it will be a huge win to have something that is going to have way more space available, and presumably you would be able to play your console games right off of those that storage medium. And that's probably why Nintendo opted to upgrade to SD Express, because the current SD cards were just going to be too slow. You could imagine with all the backwards compatibility library that's going to be playable day one that you own on your current Switch, plus all the new games that are coming out that are going to have way larger file sizes, you're probably going to want some bigger storage capacity that writes and reads at a great speed, and micro SD Express rather is a huge upgrade over the current SD technology we have today. Now that also raises the question, can you only then use your SD card with this slot if you're only playing old Switch 1 games and not Switch 2 games? Stuff like that's a possibility. Maybe your current SD cards you own today are not compatible at all, but while we'll wait to see all the details on that, it's just nice confirmation to see that SD Express is the tech that Nintendo went with this time around, and they will be writing and reading much faster in the current console generation than the expandable storage was with the original Nintendo Switch, and we're going to need that with these game file sizes this gen. So let me know in the comments down below what you make of all this different info. Are you excited for the confirmed edition of Wi-Fi 6 support? Obviously Amiibo coming back. What do you think about that dock streaming idea essentially being dead in the water now, and micro SD card express, so we can build out our libraries presumably up to 1 terabyte plus on these cards and really not have too much issue, hopefully playing the majority of our old Switch 1 and Switch 2 games libraries whenever it comes to having this console all set up and configured with everything after its launch. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.